Qu'est-ce que vous obtenez? That is French, by the way. What do you get? Aren't you so glad you come here for multicultural, multilingual guitar building content? We're not just building guitars, we're teaching about culture, we're learning languages. This is the best place to be. So, ladies and gentlemen, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Words are hard, and it's 9:40 in the morning, and I'm just still waking up. Welcome back to Mad Lad Instruments. My name is Drew. I build guitars and basses in my garage, and I take you along with the shenanigans, and I didn't finish the bit. Okay, what do you get when you've been building guitars for about 2 years now, and you think about all the classic color combos that are out there, and you think to yourself, man, it's been 2 glorious and blessed years, but I haven't had a client ask me to do a two-tone burst yet, or at least not up to this point. So today, that day has finally come. We are going to be doing a two-tone burst, an absolute classic. There's some history to be learned about this particular finish, and we will see my particular take on a two-tone burst. And you may be asking yourself, Drew, how do you innovate, or how do you pivot on something that is so fantastically wonderful and has stood the test of time? Well, you don't really. The spins that I put on this particular finish are not born of a brilliant movement of inspiration. I didn't really reinvent the wheel. It kind of just became a case of my spray gun oversprayed, but it had a really cool effect, and we will get to that in a little bit. So, see, that's called an attention getter. Or maybe burying the lead, because you've already seen the thumbnail and what it looks like. But without further ado, today we're going to be working on a 54 Dusty Burst, which is my take on the Two-Tone Sunburst. And without further ado, let's just jump over to Drew on the bench, who's going to talk a little bit about the body and some history, and we'll kick this thing right off. So here we go. Alrighty, let's talk a little bit about bursts. And for many of you, this will be a review, but for some of you, you might learn a thing or two. And for those of you that is a review, maybe you'll pick up something cool along the way too. So let's go from the very basics. A burst is basically any paint job that has a lighter color that gradually works its way out to a darker color in kind of a gradient, almost explosion-like or a burst-like pattern. So you have your lightest color in the middle, and you work out to any number of different colors out towards the edge, typically two-tone or three-tone, but I've seen ones that take way more than that. It's a little bit different than a fade or an ombre, as sometimes I call it. So you may see in the Mad Lad catalog a Barton Creek ombre or Barton Creek fade. A fade would start with one particular color, usually the lighter color on the top, and then work its way down this way. So similar setup, you have a number of tones that all get darker, but instead of going in a linear direction, you're going in an outward direction. You're going in a burst direction. And there's tons of different bursts out there. You have the two-tone burst, you have the three-tone burst, you have the cherry sunburst, you have the lemon burst, you have the tobacco burst, you have the iced tea burst, the bourbon burst, the whiskey burst.
Buffoonery.
There's so many different manufacturers out there that have named and claimed their versions of the burst, but they all come down to lighter color in the middle, and then maybe a medium color, and then a darker color out on the edge. In the Fender world, specifically on Stratocasters started manufacture in the mid-50s. And then they were starting out with a two-tone burst, which was just kind of a lemon yellow color with a black color out on the edge. And then they moved to the three-tone burst in the late 50s, early 60s. I'll put the actual number down here. My guitar history is a little bit lacking, but I prefer the three-tone burst, just a little bit of amber. And Fender purists will tell you that when you're spraying that, you do your base light color, you do the dark color out on the edge, and then you feather in the medium color. I usually go lightest to darkest, and there's a reason for that we'll get into in a second, but just know that there's as many different bursts there's as many different ways to spray them as well. So today we're going to be doing a two-tone burst. What that means is that there are only 2 colors. We're going to be doing a kind of brown sugar brown, almost like a barbecue sauce. I have this yellow left over. If you remember the Mythic Red, this is actually the yellow that I use in that. I'm going to add a little bit of red to it just to get a little bit of a darker value to get to that kind of brown sugar brown. And then around the edge, we're going to do some black, which I have to mix up. So you guys are going to see me mix up color, but it's pretty straightforward if you've seen my other videos as well. You take a water-based polyurethane like Varathane, what we got right here, and then you just mix in a little bit of a water-based gel stain like Unicorn Spit, which is what I have right here. And then you mix it up until you get the color that you want. Really, really straightforward. I like to keep it easy around here. So if you're using nitrocellulose lacquer, you'll use a oil-based or a nitro-based color. And then if you're staining, obviously just buy the stain colors that you want. We're going to be spraying this particular burst today. Bursts are a little bit easier to spray with an HVLP gun, at least in my opinion. I have done them with rattle cans in the past, but it can get a little tricky feathering out the colors since the spray gun only has one setting, and that's go, so you can't really adjust the pressure and that sort of thing and really feather it in.
But it's pretty straightforward to do with a spray can too. Just gotta take your time. You can even do like masks. I've seen people cut out like masks around and they'll just mask off the top and then only touch the areas around the edges using masking. So that's another option for you as well. So with that history lesson out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the body that we're going to be spraying. So we have a gorgeous two-piece ash Mad Lad hardtail Strat body and nice wide grain. And the special request on this one from a one Rich, or we'll call him Rich, he's our client of the week. And Rich is actually a displaced Texan. You never really leave Texas, or Texas never leaves you. You just kind of get displaced. So former Texan as well. We've had a lot of talk about in that way. I won't say too much because I don't want to give away the bag. But Rich had asked that we do a little bit of a stain on the grain lines just to make them pop a little bit more. So what I did is I mixed up some aqua coat with some leftover ash dust, and that was able to darken the grain lines just a little bit. So not as drastic as like a black grain stain, but still giving it a little bit of color so that the grain really pops. I think it would have popped without the filler or the colored filler, but this gives us just a little bit of extra insurance. And so I'm going to grab a cup and mix up some black. I'll do a time lapse on that. Then we will take this over to the spray booth and talk strategy for spraying a burst. Alrighty, got color mixed up, and now I want to talk a little bit about the theory of spraying a burst, but not before I hit this little high spot with some sandpaper. 1 second. A little Drew SMR here. There we go. Something that'll help you not just with your burst, but with all paint is good surface prep. So yeah, good sanding. We're up to 320 again, just to reiterate. Alrighty, let's talk a little bit about strategy for spraying a burst. And first things first, bursts are something of a litmus test for beginner builders and beginner sprayers and stuff like that. I think a lot of people think that bursts are really, really difficult, and they can be if you don't know a couple tips. And these are not the gospel truth, so please consult other really great sprayers and tutorials as well. I'm just giving you the tips that I've developed over spraying a couple bursts in my life. So what we're going to do is, first things first, we're going to put down our base color. From there, the hard part, or kind of the gut clench, the butt cheek clench moment, is doing the feathering around the edge here. Since we're doing a two-tone burst, we're just going to be doing it once, but if you're doing a three-tone, then you would do the way that I do it is you do your lightest color, second to lightest around the edge, and then you do your dark color and just feather it around. Again, that's not Fender standard. Fender, as I understand it, would do light, darkest, and then feather in the second to dark around the edge. But I just find it easier to go lightest to darkest. But since we're doing a two color burst, it's going to be a little bit easier on us today. And what you're going to see me do, and I'll point it to you in the time lapse, but I have this kind of flicking motion that I developed. So I'll flick kind of around the edge to kind of build my color around the top and the bottom. So a lot of rapid succession where I'm just kind of flicking. It's something that I've had to develop with my paint gun and my compressor, because sometimes my paint gun doesn't give me consistent color. Now, there are people that will have like better setups and they can just go around the edge and they're super duper confident about it. If that's you, that's great, but that's not me. So you'll see me doing this kind of flick. And the way that I'm flicking is I kind of flick outward. So I start inside and I flick out. So that way, if there's any extra or overspray, it's going out towards the backboard and not the body. And then, if that wasn't hard enough, well, I'm not going to say it's difficult. Again, we're just learning the tips. The part where a lot of people get really, really frustrated with bursts is when you're going around the edge here. And the key to that, and you'll see me do it, is you just got to bring your air on your gun down a little bit so it's not spraying as much. Or you can either bring the air down on your gun, or if you have a gun that can control the output of like the color, you just bring that down as well. It's probably better to do it that way than to drop the air, because if you drop the air, there's the chance that the paint doesn't aerosolize correctly and you get a splatter. So if you can, regulate the color flow knob first, not the airflow. But I've learned to do it with the airflow nozzle, and so it's a bad habit probably that I could refine a little bit. But key is bring your air down just a little bit as you're going around the edges. What's going to happen is if you spray really, really hot, or you have a lot of paint coming through, you're going to get the edge here, but you're also going to get overspray. So if I'm spraying this much, it's obviously going to hit the edge. But if I'm spraying this much, it's going to grab the edge and then it's going to go around. and sometimes these particles will shoot over and you'll get like overspray in this area in the middle. It's kind of an effect. Some people like it. If you're doing like a really, really metal kind of finish, then that overspray is kind of the thing. And chances are, because I'm not the best in the world at this yet, that I might have just a little bit of overspray, and I can come and show you what I mean. But if you're going for that really, really nice gradient, that really, really profesh looking two-tone burst or three-tone burst, then just bring your color down a little bit when you're coming around the edges here, and just again gently feather around and really work on it. Make sure you're not overspraying on the edge. So yeah, to recap, base color, we're going to feather around the edges, we're going to bring our air down, come around the edge, let all of that dry off, and then we'll see what we get, and we'll go to top coat. So don't be afraid. This is really, really easy. Oh, and make sure you're wearing PPE. I've got my gloves on. I'm going to throw my respirator on. We're in a well-regulated, air flow area, and make sure that you check the side of your finish just for any other safety things, because I want you to be here for a long time and a good time. So keep that in mind. So without further ado, let's hit that time lapse and get spraying. Alrighty, this has been kind of a body of surprises. So it's actually flashing a lot quicker. I've only given it about 5 or 10 minutes and it's pretty much evaporated. So I'm going to go ahead and get into spraying some black, but also this is really, really orange. So I'm going to see how it looks with the black once we put it down, but I might spray over everything with just like a red wash. We'll see. This is another part where you're just like, oh man, I screwed it up. Like this looks so weird, but the burst isn't over until we get the other color down. So sometimes the black will come in and give it a whole bunch of contrast and it'll be like, oh, it looks just fine. Went ahead and tack clothed a couple things here, or a couple areas where there was just a little bit of particulate. And then you'll notice that I take it off and then I kind of spray. That's just me spraying around the edges. I don't have a spray booth that's big enough to spray around the edges. So I take it off and then I spray like in the inner bouts and around the edges and stuff like that. So that's why you see it go off for slight moments. So here we go. Here comes the black. And so as I mentioned, just remember that flicking motion. I'm going to show you here in a little bit. I'm going to bring my air down once we get around to the edges, and we'll see if we can't make this look real tight and not have a whole lot of overspray. So here we go. To me, one of the litmus tests for if you did a good finish or not is if you can't stop staring at it, you probably did a good job. So I really dig how this finish came out, and I've been looking at it and admiring it and asking myself, man, does this one have to go? Can I keep it for myself? But I've got another Strat with a 3-tone burst that I'm working on for my personal collection, so not too far away. One thing I did want to draw your guys' attention to real quick, and remember we were talking about it earlier when we were over at the spray booth, got a little bit of overspray here. I'm going to bring it in right here. So you can see it's a little dusty. And like I said, this was, and it's funny enough, I saw a video from Jose Lopez. I can't remember. I'll put him down below, but he is also another sprayer at the Fender Custom Shop. Does a lot of really cool stuff. But when he sprays his bursts, he sprays downward. So if you spray down and away from the body, usually that'll help contain the overspray. So imagine you're spraying your sides, you spray down, and so all the particles are going this way as opposed to over the body. So that's another way to get around it. But as I mentioned, sometimes you get a little bit of overspray. As you can see, there's some little black particulates over the top here, but it still looks pretty killer. It's just a little dusty, but I really dig the effect. It kind of looks like an old sepia photograph. And again, just goes to show you that we don't make mistakes. We just have happy accidents, as good old Uncle Bob would say. Now we get to clear coat. And if you thought this looked great already, just wait until we start working up some clear coat and we get a real nice shiny polish on the top of it. So
I've got this kind of rattle can roundup going on. So over the past couple videos, y'all know that I love rattle can finishes, and it saves me from having to spray finish in my HVLP gun. And so I did color with HVLP this time around, but I've been testing out different rattle cans for Topcoat. And this week we're going to be trying out this gloss clear 2X Ultra Cover from Rust-Oleum. This is an acrylic, also UV resistant, very, very cool here. I can't remember if it's a polyacrylic or a polyurethane or an acrylic, but typically acrylics fall in the families of polyurethanes, although not all acrylics are polyurethanes and yada, yada, yada. A lot of chemistry. Point being, I think this is going to give us a really nice clear coat on top. It's got the Resto seal of approval. Y'all know that I'm a Resto glazer at this point. So we're going to go ahead and get clear coat going. I'm going to do a time lapse. Pretty straightforward. We're just going to coat everything top to bottom, doing 50% overlap. You'll see me do it in the time lapse as well. Just looking to get real good coverage. The dry up time on this is about an hour, or it says give an hour between coats, and so we're just going to slather it on. Normally I would do a quick kind of tack coat and then do 15 minutes later spray it over, but this stuff is pretty consistent. I've used it on other builds as well, so I'm going to lay it on, not too thick, but not tack coat, not super thick, just right in the middle, normal coat size. All the same rules apply, by the way. Make sure you're wearing your respirator. Make sure you have a well-ventilated area. I want you to be here for a good time and a long time, and I want you to be making guitars and basses for a good time and a long time too. So be safe. All right, let's get to it. Alrighty, good morning, welcome back. We have put down some clear coat, but there's an update.
Nani?
Resto, you're breaking my heart. So I got this Resto Ultra Gloss, or Ultra Cover 2X Gloss Clear. Seals, protects, revitalizes wood, metal, plastic, more fast drying, non-yellowing, UV resistant compared to other Rust-Oleum general purpose coatings. Danger, extremely flammable, liquid vapor, harmful vapor, causes splash fire, contents under pressure. Net weight 12 ounce, 340 grams.
Buffoonery.
But it doesn't spray. And granted, like I said, I've told you guys before, companies are allowed to have a bad day, and I don't know if this one just lost all of the pressure inside of it or something like that, but I still love Resto's colors. They do a really great gold spray paint and the gold flake that I've used on other stuff, which I really, really like, but the clear coat's hit or miss. I've also used this stuff, like this particular version, but matte, so instead of be 2X Ultra Cover Gloss, matte clear, seals, protects, and revitalizes wood, metal, plastic, you get the bit. I've used the matte version of this and it worked just fine, so I think this is just a bad can. Resto, we're still cool. It's not like friendship with Resto ended, but I have seen the light. The Mad Lads have seen a great light, and that light is Krylon Black Label. So, Black Label Lacquer, Krylon, new brand, new sponsorship that we are going to be chasing after. No, just kidding. So this is going to be a deep cut for all of my southern viewers, but did you ever have a friend, like if you lived in Texas or like, I don't want to say the Southwest, because I mean, we're not the deep South, but we're also not Southwest. So Texas is kind of in a weird place in the southern United States. But anyway, if you lived in one of the southern United States and you had a buddy that said crayon instead of crayon, those people are always the best. So shout outs to all the crayon people. If you're a crayon people, leave a comment down below. But Krylon or Krylon. So this is amazing stuff. This is Krylon specialty lacquer. It checks all the boxes. I've sprayed like 6 coats on this. It sprays super duper even. It appears to be self-leveling, which self-leveling is like the gold standard for spray finishes. And most lacquers, I think this is an acrylic-based lacquer. And then lacquers, just like polyurethanes, can have different bases. You can have oil-based paint or oil-based poly, water-based poly. With lacquers, you can have acrylic-based poly or acrylic-based lacquer. You can have nitrocellulose-based lacquer. Nitrous is obviously the older stuff. But anyway, lacquers tend to be self-leveling, and what I mean by self-leveling is basically when the product cures, it kind of levels itself out, so you don't have to do as much level sanding. This particular body, I'm going to do some, let me take you over here, we're going to do some B-reel real quick. This is like super duper shiny, and you can see just very, very minimal orange peeling. This is a way better finish that I've gotten compared to a polyurethane finish. Poly, it would have like big old blotches, it'd be really orange peely, but I have literally hit this with just a super fine Scotch-Brite pad, and I did that so I did 4 coats of the Black Label stuff, And then I did just a light coat of, a light abrasive pad, Scotch-Brite pad, the white one particularly. And then I sprayed like maybe 1 or 2 more. I've let this cure for like 2 or 3 days, again, unintentionally, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this is just ready for polish. I'm not gonna have to go through the regular wet sanding and stuff like that. I'm gonna give it a test and see if I can't polish this out. And I think most of this will polish out with buffing compound. And then we will have a shiny top coat that took way less time, all thanks to the black label. Again, pending testing. We're about to test it right now, but if this works, this is a true game changer. And this will be the black label moving forward, and I'll be using this on a lot more builds because it just saves me literally hours of time. So yeah, let's go ahead and test this out. Let's get some polish down on it and see what happens. Okay, longtime fans of the channel will recognize this campy little ottoman and chair that I sit in. So I'm actually inside. Out in the shop, there's a lot of sawdust, and usually the CNC is running, so you've got all these dust particles that are flying around. So I like to do my polish and final work inside because you don't have to worry about dust particles kicking up. And I don't know that I've ever gone through my polishing process before. So this is just a 6-inch buffing pad that I got from Harbor Freight. It's a Harbor Freight special. I think this was less than $10. And then I've tried out a bunch of different compounds and a bunch of different techniques for polishing, but really it all comes down to one, Meguiar's Ultimate Compound. This is a partially cut compound and partial polished compound. Think of this as really, really, really high grit sandpaper, like liquid sandpaper, super duper high grit. There's some abrasives in there that are gonna, break up and get into the finish and just work it in and make it super duper shiny. And you'll hear, I don't know that I mentioned it's a cutting compound as well as a polish compound. I'm sure somebody in the comments is going to let me know that technically it isn't, but when you're looking at compounds, there's different types. So there's cutting compound, which is meant to remove really deep scratches and stuff like that. And then you have polish compound, which is meant to make everything shiny. This is kind of right in the middle. And I've used both cutting compounds and polish compounds, and I've still come back to this, and this is giving me the best shine. So what we're gonna do, I'm just gonna get a little bit tested on one of these corners. The black areas are actually already really shiny, but I'm thinking I'm gonna work this in. You can do this by hand. It's actually a pretty therapeutic process. You just throw in a show and rub it in, and once it starts getting shiny, then you're good to go. But I also have an automatic polisher, like an automotive polisher and buffer that I use as well. So assuming this works, you'll probably see me break that out in the time lapse, and that's just gonna get it super duper shiny. And I really, really love these time lapses because you literally see the dullness start to work out and it get really, really shiny. So it's kind of a cool effect. So we're gonna jump into the time lapse. Actually, I'm gonna test it. I'll let you guys know what the results are, and if everything goes according to plan, then we will hit that time lapse and we'll see this shine up like a gem. So let's do that. Okay. So I have polished this side, and then this side I haven't done anything with. And so you can see a little bit more orange peeling here, over here. Not as much. I'm thinking once we hit it with the actual buffing machine with a little bit higher heat and RPM, this will even out a little bit more. But another test that I like to do when I'm checking out reflectiveness or polishing is if you see here, there's a little shadow or a little reflection of my finger. This is what I like to call the finger test. So especially on darker finishes like this, you should be able to see just the littlest bit of color. And you see how there towards the top, you can kind of see the pink in my finger. So that shows you that it is polished up, and that's a good reflection. You can kind of see it over here, but this is more of a shadow. So we probably need to work this out. And then over here, similar things. So yeah, I think we are good to go with polishing. I'm going to see how this works with the actual power tools. We're going to bring out the big guns and get this polished up and see what happens. Alrighty, that is a wrap on 54 Dusty Burst. So really stoked with how everything came out on this one, and always really, really happy to do a finish for a fellow Texan. And again, it surprised me that it's taken me this long to do a classic Sunburst or Two-Tone Burst, but hopefully you guys picked up a trick or two on spraying bursts and enjoyed the process along the way. Also, W find on Krylon, Crayon, Lacquer, black label stuff. This is really, really great. I think going through the polishing and everything like that, I probably would have done like a really high grit level sand if I wanted to be really, really nitpicky, maybe like a 1500 or 2000 grit. Again, very much on the top end. We don't have to do any of the lower grits. But yeah, this stuff is self-leveling, it's magical, and it saved me a ton of time with wet sanding, and so we'll definitely be using this in the future. Big shout outs to Krylon. And as things go, there's a joke between me and my sibling that whenever they like something, it immediately goes out of stock. So I hope that Krylon continues to stock this or make it better. Might have to pick up a couple cans and just sit on them for a little bit, but I digress. Anyway, really, really happy with this stuff, and we'll be using it in the future. And we'll wrap up in the normal way, and that is by me saying, always remember, friends, that you are wanted, you are loved, and you are appreciated. You have a special talent that nobody else has, and the world is waiting on you to bring it out. So muster a little courage, go out into the world, and change it. That's what the world's waiting on. You. Till next time, friends, be good to one another, and we'll see you in the next one. God bless.